Hi, everybody. Happy Valentine's Day. I'm Laura DiCarlo of Career Directors International. And if you're starting, currently thinking about starting, or actively building a resume writing or career coaching business, I am so glad you joined me today. In this show, we share tools, strategy, and mindset tips that lead to your ultimate success without the stress. We're currently streaming on CDI's Facebook page, YouTube channel, and LinkedIn page. Listen, they don't all show me your names, and I don't want to make you do any complicated registrations. So, in a moment, when I ask you to say hello to me, just make it a practice when you're commenting to just always put your name in the comments. That way, I know who I'm talking to. And today, let me throw this up on the screen to be fancy. We're starting the beginning of our interview series where I'm going to be sharing my story, startup and growth secrets from successful self-employed career industry pros. And I'll be telling you more about the guests that I have coming to join us over the next, right now I think I have 16 weeks worth of guests. So you're going to get to hear all kinds of perspectives and information and tips and tricks on what works and lessons learned. Really great. I can't wait. So before we get there, though, three quick things. First, and let me get over to the chat so I can see anything here. If you're with me, please give me a hashtag hello. Again, you put your name in there. If you're completely new to me, you might give me a hashtag newbie. If you're a CDI member, you could put hashtag Viper for my special VIPs, my inner circle people. But I want to know who's here, so please take a moment to comment. I don't see anything yet, but hopefully you'll be coming in and you'll say hello. Secondly, if you have questions today, please put them in the chat. I'm going to be monitoring it as I talk today, and I'm going to be asking you a number of questions too so we can interact. Hi, Grant. Yeah, Grant Cooper is with us, and he's going to be one of my future guests. So glad you joined me today, Grant. All right, and third, if you like what you hear today and you want to hear more about building and growing and starting a successful resume writing and or career coaching practice, then be sure to like, follow, subscribe, depending on what channel you're coming through, because we're doing this every Wednesday at 3:45 p.m. Eastern. All right, so let's get into it. Again, I'm sharing my story. So just as a recap though, so I kicked off this new live stream show in September, and I think we've covered some really amazing applicable data. Wow, that was a mouthful for me. Let's see, we crushed the belief that AI was hurting the industry. We proved that the majority of career industry pros have been able to increase their pricing and increase their revenue over the past year, and the majority of the rest are maintaining. We ID'd that the ones who were most likely to be struggling had not changed any of their marketing in the last 2 years or more, or had very low prices, making them ripe for being compared to the DIY free ChatGPT AI types of services. We also talked about the marketing channels that successful growing career industry practices were most using and how you could take advantage of them, and how wonderful that they were all so low cost, free, accessible, and didn't have big learning curves. We've also talked about things like busting imposter syndrome, how to stop trading hours for dollars, smart packaging to close more sales and to give your clients complete solutions, and the value of certifications in branding and promotion. So we've been busy, and we're going to stay on this path, but it's a twist. We're now going to hear directly from those career industry business owners on how they did it. And like I said, I've got, I think, 17 guests lined up for the weekly show at this point, and I assume as we go, we'll get momentum and more people will want to join me. And it's pretty neat because I'm seeing people who started their business in their 20s to their 60s. For some, many actually, it's a second career and even a third career. And we've got some who are grossing as much as $400,000 annually without a team, and others who are doing it with a team. So I'm really excited to have them share their stories, lessons, and advice to help you succeed with ease. So starting out with my own story of challenges, grit, joy, wisdom, gruesome hell, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, so if you're as excited as I am to get started, give me a let's go in the chat. All right. So I decided, even though it's a little bit corny, that interviewing myself, I'm going to read you the questions as if I had my guest here with me. I just think it's easier to go that way and stay on topic and not jump around. And also I recognize that some of my future guests will probably look to this recording to see kind of how this goes. So let's get started. So what is your company name and when did you first start your company? So gosh, that it really depends on when you start counting. When I was in college, and I'm trying not to give away a story that I'm going to share in a few moments, but basically I started a informal, no business license on-campus business where I graduated from high school in 1987 to give you an idea of my age and the technology that was available. I was very proud of my one sheets with the little pull-off phone numbers that I got to put on bulletin boards all over the university campus. And my company's name was Laura-Ads for Laura's Advertising. And I did a little bit of everything, including formatting resumes. It was all writing newsletters, those types of projects. So that would have been, I'm trying to figure out when that would have been. I'm super bad with math. I graduated high school in '87. Let's just say that was like 93, maybe. It all blends together. I have like data in my head of like, I got married in 97. I bought my house in 97. It's very scary to say that, but it's true. So that was really my first business. And then the next business I kind of inherited. I worked for Sears Resume Service. And they give me an opportunity, which I'm also going to talk to you about in a moment here, that led to me launching a competitive edge career service around, my husband and I have estimated that would have been around 1995, I guess. So I know that's blurry, but I've been doing this for a long time. So if you have a business or you're planning one and you have a name in mind, let me know in the comments what it is. I know that Grant has a business, and I see Nicolette Barrett is saying, hi, Laura. Hi, Nicolette. Give us your business names in the comments, if you would, please. That would be wonderful. And anybody else who's joined. All right, so tell us a little bit about your business. All right, so as I was saying, I started out doing a little bit of all kinds of documents, but it became more formal. I did have the opportunity to work in this field before I had the resume business, in that my first official job while I was studying technical writing at the graduate level, and we were all so proud of me at University of Central Florida because I was the only one with a job in the field. It was the first year offering that graduate degree because you couldn't do really a whole lot back then with a degree in creative writing, which was what my bachelor's was. So I had Laura Ads, but I needed, some formal income. I took a job as a resume writer and desktop publisher for a Mail Copy Plus type place. That's kind of the Kinko, a privately owned type Kinko's type thing. And I made an hourly wage for the resumes they sold for like $19.95, even though I'd put like 4 hours into them. And I did all sorts of graphic design and desktop publishing and whatnot. Hello, Facebook user. If you give me your name, I would love to know who I'm talking to because I can't see names from a lot of you. All right, sorry to interrupt that. So when Sears Resume Service to a competitive edge, I'm not trying to jump around and be very confusing here, but it was your traditional business in terms of career services. They hired me as a contractor to run their office, and I did resume writing. I was in a Sears store, but the company was AT Resume. Um, and it felt like my business, because if I was going to earn income, it was going to be because I made sales, and they took a percentage. But it was like having your own business, but they did give me a little bit of a safety net of a weekly stipend for the first year. But it was resumes, cover letters, all documents. The career services didn't come in until year two, when, I was in this for like a year, and I was like, yeah, I'm a contractor. I need benefits, somehow I have to get benefits. And so I looked around, and to not tell you a long story, I landed a position as a director of career planning and professional development with a private university. Now, I was in it to hustle. I wanted to build a practice and not have a 9 to 5 job, but I recognized that I could be flexible with the Sears resume service role in what I was building and the momentum I was gaining. So if that meant having to have this other job at the same time that I was building the practice, I was willing to do what it took, because I had the long-term vision of what could be possible in terms of the revenue I could earn and the schedule I could set. It actually, while I had to hustle and work a lot, it was wonderful because it threw me into the other side of our industry, learning about, they just threw me to the wolves. They were like, well, they actually said, you write a damn good resume, so we know you'll learn the rest. And they just handed me a manual and threw me to the wolves. And there weren't associations like there are today. There was the American Association for Job Search Trainers, and I went to their conferences, and I felt like a groupie with big names who were speakers there, like Dick Bowles and whatnot. But I read everything I get my hands on. I worked with a very challenging population. It was first a business school, then it became a college, and then it became a university. But again, not only did it let me build all these skills to bring into the Sears resume service, but it also gave me this wonderful opportunity to see, you think school, business school, university, these were a lot of adult students in crisis who we dealt with a lot of third generation welfare, people who didn't have a lot of faith in themselves. And I luckily was working on graduate studies at that point in training and development, which helped me see they just had different learning styles I need to reach. And we had fabulous results. Like, I set the placement rates for the 7 years I was with them, most of which went part-time. Records further, I think it was 11 campuses in 2 countries for placement. So when a job seeker would come to me in my private practice who had like this great work history and they'd been laid off, and they would be like, well, I don't think anybody's going to hire me because I have a GED. But yet they've got this work history. And over there, I'm looking at this person who's been incarcerated and has all these real challenges. And they went out and got a great job with just training and not even experience. And it gave me that wisdom to help me realize for them and for myself that, we are in charge of our destinies. And if you want the business to be successful, if you want the job search to be successful, you're going to figure out what it takes and do it. So I will end this part by saying I always felt like I was an innovator. Even in those first years with Sears resume service, I had that, it was like $1,100 laser printer because it was seemed like a necessity. And I had a tabloid printer because my graphic background, I wanted to merge the best of all worlds. And if I saw somebody who would benefit, like the tugboat captain who wanted to go be the captain of the first cruise ship to come into Port Canaveral, which is now the busiest tourist port, I think, in the world. But at the time, it was going to be our first cruise ship. And it's like, well, that's a big jump from tugboat captain. So I wanted to use graphics, and I did. His was just an 8.5 by 11 with an image and a plain white scannable version. But there were cases where I created, like when my now husband of 27 years, we celebrated on February 9th, when he was looking to apply for a job with FedEx with a background in warehousing and with UPS. I did a tabloid resume with graphic images on the cover, and out of a cattle call interview of like 100 people, he was one of the 3 who got hired. And so I was finding places to bring that uniqueness in even way back then. So I feel like I was supposed to tell you in there, I thought there was a, I guess that was where I was supposed to tell you about the opportunity that AT resume gave me. Let me stop here. So, okay, hi Amanda. And Nicolette says, I'm coming up on 10 years at the end of May and planning a formal shift in my business as I will be retiring from my 9-to-5 at the end of the year. Fantastic. And then Grant, I think that's you, strategic resumes. Wonderful. Congratulations on that, Nicolette. Okay, thanks everyone for joining me. So how do we go from AT resume to a competitive edge career service LLC, which is kind of the whole point of this is how did you get self-employed, right? So one day I'm working along at Sears Resume Service and I get a call and it's my boss from the corporate office, and he says something to the effect of, I have something to tell you and you're either going to see it as a problem or an amazing opportunity. And he went on to tell me that they were closing the chain down, and that if I wanted to continue, I couldn't take any of the equipment, but I was welcome to take the client list and I could forward the phone to another location as long as I was willing to pay the back Yellow Pages bill, which I think it was probably about, they probably hadn't paid in a few months. It was like $700 a month. So it was like $2,100. And my mind was like, get a whole business that I'm already running for only $2,100 and it's all mine. I mean, I literally was that was I think on a Friday, and I was borrowing mom's credit card because I was in my 20s, borrowing mom's credit card and buying a printer. I already had a computer because I did a lot of work at home. So buying that laser printer with that payment plan, and I was at the city on Monday to start, get a license, and I already had the phone transferred and the bill paid. Yes, credit cards, borrowing from dad. Those are things that had to happen, but I was setting up for my future. And the thing that has always stuck with me is I just assumed like all those other companies did that. Now I know there's a couple Sears Resumes that still exist. They were privately owned, but it was like 6 months down the road that I got a call or an email from one of the other contractors, and they're like, hey, we realized that a bunch of us realized that you went into business. They're like, how'd you do it? And I came to find out, and I mean, this could be incorrect, but what this person told me was that I was the only contractor to open a business. To me, it just made sense. You kept doing what you were doing and you figured out the other pieces as you went along, right? This great opportunity to be self-employed. So that's how a competitive edge career service came to be. I wasn't an LLC immediately. I was a sole proprietor. All right, I talked way longer than I planned on that subject. But I think we all have really interesting stories that it's going to be neat to hear. So what did I do before? It's supposed to be before you started the business, but I just thought I would tell you about my history, and we will hear from everyone else on theirs in the future. So my parents opened a video store when I was 13 years old. Yes, you might remember those things, VHS tapes and DVDs if you're not too young. It wasn't all digital. There wasn't really any digital back then. We got laser discs eventually. But anyway, I worked in their video store from the age of 13. So I have like a crazy work ethic. You would think it might have made me go the other way, but I just was always like, I think I was meant to be an entrepreneur because I was always looking at how I could design things and do things differently and set up the store. And I got to be their summer manager. So interestingly enough, I always wanted to be an artist, and my parents were like, oh. And I know this isn't my job, but I think it's so relevant. So I started at University of South Florida as a pre-med biology major. I hated it. I didn't really understand it. I didn't like it. But I was taking creative writing classes and doing really well in them. And my parents were like, well, I get it. And I guess if you can just get through a degree with a good, with good scores, you can get something serious for your graduate school. I was like, okay, yeah. Little did we know this would end up being a career, and I'd write resumes for dummies and all these things that I have done, which just goes to show you all the opportunity that exists. But when I was in grad school, and I don't have a graduate degree, I have started 3 of them and learned just enough to know what I need. In fact, at one of those AJST conferences that I went to, AJST doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately. But one of those events I went to, I actually was like polling every person who was my industry hero. Do you think if I'm going to stay self-employed, do I need a graduate degree? And everybody was like, only if you want to be a professor someday. So it didn't seem sane. Like when I was studying career counseling, I was going to hit a point where I would have to actually pay somebody in practice X number of hours in order to qualify for licensing. And it was like a lot of money and a lot of time. And I'm like, I'm just doing this for the skill. So while I was in college, though, to pay for my graduate studies, at the same time, I worked in a video game arcade, a movie theater concession stand, and a comics and collectibles store. So that was really interesting. Very, very challenging, but I had a good time. I mean, I was a kid, right? All right. So in the chat, so somebody said, inspiring story, Laura. Thank you. So I'd love to read what others did before they started their practice, or if you haven't started yet, what you're doing now. Let me know in the chat and I will go on. So what made you decide to start your business? So this is really easy. There are a couple of factors that are really serious to me. And one is that I didn't know what I could do with my life. I didn't even know about having your own business. But at age 7, it's very visceral for me. My mom worked nights as a nurse, and I would have to get myself up for school, and it was still dark out. That's at least what I remember. And I remember eating dry cereal from the box. Really good, I know. But I was 7, right? And thinking that I was never going to be a teacher because this was way too early. And I mean, I didn't have the life view to understand that most jobs started that time that were considered professional. But I just knew that wasn't for me, that strict culture, 9 to 5 or 7 to 2 or whatever the heck it was, wasn't going to work. And then my other thing is as I had jobs, I really hated, and I'm sure you can all relate to this as part of wanting to be self-employed. I really hated somebody telling me what to do, and not because I'm not a rule follower, because I'm like a crazy rule follower. I mean, I like to make exceptions to the rule when things will benefit, like those clients with the creative resumes way back in the 90s. But I hate things like, if you worked in retail, you might have heard, if you've got time to lean, you've got time to clean. Oh my gosh, just jobs of just emptiness where your brain isn't being used effectively and you're not giving of these wonderful gifts you have inside. And so I didn't know I wanted to start a business. I just so luckily fell into it backwards by landing the job as the contractor. And this is what's so neat about opportunities, right? Because I was really down on my luck when I landed that position with Sears Resume Service / AT Resume was the corporate name. I had been let go from my desktop publishing resume writing job on New Year's Eve from the print shop. I only had one roommate in a 3-bedroom apartment, and we hadn't been able to fill the other room. It wasn't because of my personality, it was just weird times. My mom and dad were going through a divorce, and my mom was all alone and struggling. And then my fiance cheated on me and had his phone disconnected. So I moved back home, and I'm trying to help my mom out, and it's all emotional at home. You can imagine, right? This marriage breaking up after all these years. Anyway, so I'm looking, don't laugh, okay? Again, it was the 90s. I'm looking in the paper at the want ads, and there's a job for a resume writer. I was like, are you serious? Somebody is hiring a resume writer? But it was commission only. And I thought, oh, there's no way. I can't do commission only. But I thought, what do I have to lose? I'll just apply. I'll talk to them. It's, what we tell job seekers a lot, get experience at interviewing, and you never know what's going to happen or what you can make happen with the right influence, suggestions, skill set that somebody can't live without, that they'll change the rules. And ironically, they interviewed me, and pretty much at the start of the or I don't know what point in the interview it was, but they told me, they're like, since we put the ad out, we've decided that, commission's just not realistic for somebody who has to build this office from scratch. So we're going to give you a $300 a week stipend for the first year. So it was like, okay, somebody living at home in the 90s without a lot of overhead expenses, and there's this opportunity to make unlimited income, and you're going to give me this little safety net. Hell yeah, of course I did it. So I feel like I just got really lucky because of all the worst things. So there's just a little message there, is that when you think like life can't get any worse, that what's happening in my life, why are all these bad things happening to me, that sometimes it's just getting you ready for the best thing ever. Because not only did I, start this job where I had all the things of being self-employed, not having to be there specific hours, setting my schedule, offering the services I wanted at the rates I wanted. So, it was almost my business, but I didn't have the risks or the yellow page ad bills or things like that. But I met my husband the day before I started the job. So, you just never know. Such good things are possible, even if you're in the darkest of days right now. All right. Okay, Gina. So yes, nobody's name is really popping up. So that's why if you came in late, I ask people, just drop your name in when you comment so I know who I'm talking to. So let me know in the chat, why did you start or want to start a business? I would love to know. And maybe you'll be my future guest and you'll get to tell everybody. All right, so as I get to the questions about CDI, this is kind of gets weird. So my next question, if I had a guest here, is at what point in your business did you find CDI? So I have, what I have written here in my notes is to say AOL dial-up. So that was the point at which I started my business. We had things like, there was a chat group, I think it was on AOL for resume writers, a discussion support group. And that was the majority of what was there. I had to jump around. I did join every organization as soon as I could find it. I held leadership roles with one that started up, honestly. And again, you have to remember, we're going back quite a while. I started with one organization. They disappointed me. I went to another. I held a leadership role there. I became disenchanted there. PRWRA started up, and they had a resume competition you didn't have to be present for. So I was like, oh yeah, I'm all in, because I had really leveraged an award I had won early in my career for most visually distinctive resume, as a way to educate job seekers of, wow, she's an award winner, she must be good at what she does. So when I saw the opportunity for awards, I was like, yeah, hell yeah. I entered every category, and that year, the illustrious Gail Howard, most likely. We didn't know each other, but we both were like head to head with who won what, and I walked away at that point. They had the highest the most points across the award. So I was asked to be the director of PR. And then as soon as we got somebody in leadership who really knew PR much better than I did at the time, I was like, give it to her. And I became the director of awards. And then in 2004, when I tried to step down from the board, I ended up actually buying PRWRA and opting to completely rebrand and build CDI, Career Directors International, because I really felt there was a need, which I'll talk about more. All right. Facebook user, maybe it's Gina, maybe it's Grant, says, I wanted another way to help people. I worked in the healthcare industry for years. And Nicolette says, I've always had a knack for writing and began helping people in college. It bled over to work and I just loved it. I didn't think about the business until 2 of my employees said I could get paid for it. I had no idea I could do a business, but then I remembered I paid someone to do my resume and it was horrible, LOL. I rewrote the whole thing. I started small and now have grown into a full career management company. That's fantastic. And then I have another Facebook user who says, I was looking at opening another business and doing due diligence. Then I was at church, and a woman I knew back in my college days approached me to sell her resume business, and I bought it. Oh, Grant. Thank you, Grant. Oh, that's awesome. And so the stories are always so interesting, right? So CDI, I came to CDI. I created CDI to fulfill a need that I didn't feel was being met in the industry. And after this would be 20 years at the helm, 19 as CDI, I'm pretty happy with what we're doing, and working really, really, really hard for you guys to make it happen. So what role has CDI played in the success you've achieved, and what has been most valuable about it? So I told you about how I leveraged the awards that I won. I think I can just talk really briefly about what members tell me, the ones who are really all in and using the resources. They tell me that, and we just did this thing on certifications on social media, so this is fresh in my mind. Certifications, especially some of the advanced ones, they love them because they are able to be validated. It's not something that you made up and said, I'm the best in the world. Somebody has actually credentialed you with those, and you're part of a smaller pool of experts. So when somebody's on LinkedIn and they search for resume writer, and there's 1.5 million resume writers out there, literally, I did that search a couple weeks ago, and then there's like only 14 certified graphic resume architects or 1 certified resume specialist in hospitality and tourism. Hey, if you got a client in that field, you're going to stand out. Same thing with awards. I push things like the Tory Awards so hard because they literally were the thing that made my life so incredibly easy. With the awards, it's just a no-brainer. Anybody, it doesn't matter what industry we're talking about, if you hear somebody's received an award for what they do, they're at a pinnacle of excellence and are worth looking into. So that's why we push that and keep that alive. The connection and networking opportunities, which so few people take advantage of, but those who do, I hear back, oh, I ended up collaborating with these other members on a book we have coming out. That's one of my guests next week is in charge of that project. They all met in a CDI event. We do all these great member-included events, and I work so hard to put like one-to-one networking opportunities into each and every one of them. And if you show up, number 2 thing on the list for how resume writers and career coaches are growing their businesses, by professional referrals and partnerships, it's a no-brainer. Go where your colleagues are to create those opportunities. So, and I value those too, because even before there were professional associations for me to join, I almost gave up. There was a point when I was taking that job as the director of career planning and professional development because I just wasn't making enough to buy insurance for myself, because back then you didn't get insurance under your parents after like age 18. It's not like now when I think it's like 27 or something like that. So I had no insurance as a contractor. So I'm taking it and I'm thinking, maybe I just can't make it. Maybe. And I was smart enough to reach out to my peers on that AOL support group. And somebody said, raise your prices. And somebody else said, I don't even know who it was, that's like 30 years ago now or something like that. And somebody else said, if everybody is saying yes, that means it's time to raise your prices. And I thought, what do I have to lose? Because I'm already thinking I'm done here, and I raised my prices. And that's not the end of the story, but it made all the difference. And I would not have known to do that if I were working siloed and isolated. It's when we talk to other people who have been where we've been and who are going where we're going, that we get the answers, the support, and the solutions that keep us in the game. I always like to think, and it's the thing that's driven me, is that, don't stop 1 second before your miracle. Because what if it's right there? It's right there. And sorry, but it's so true. You don't know. All those good things you're doing, they're adding up. They matter. So, okay, if you are a CDI Association member, let me know what your favorite part is, or maybe what's the highest ROI benefit you've taken advantage of. And I know so far everybody who's communicated with me is a current member. So I'm not asking you to pat me on the back. I just want to know what you love. Okay, what is having your own business made possible for you in your life? Yeah, we know I could talk about this for a really long time. I'm going to try not to. Let me see what time it is. Oh, I'm doing really good. I thought it seems like I've been talking for hours. Okay, so I have a quick story for you. So when I took that job with Business Training Institute that became Herzing University, across the span of time I was with them, that first year I was full-time. So, I was doing that full-time, and I was doing Sears resume service mornings, evenings, weekends, because I had that vision. I was driven to knowing that it wouldn't be forever. It was just for now to make it happen. But I went all in. I paid for myself to go to those AJST conferences, and I bought books with my own money on interviewing and job search and networking. I was paying for graduate school myself to learn how to, do training and development with my population, because I actually created and taught a 6-week school to work job survival course. I'd bring in guest speakers, all this stuff. I hustled, and I told you earlier about my success rate and how successful my program was. We basically, all students, except for some unusual stories I won't go into. Remember, I told you I had kind of a challenging population. Well, I can just quickly tell you that it was my goal. Everybody who was not yet employed when I joined was getting a job, and all my students knew it. And I got them all bought in by playing games with them and addressing their different learning styles, so they felt seen and heard. And one day, one of them brings me in a newspaper clipping, and basically the 2 students I'd been trying to reach, they hadn't been my students, they were just on the not employed list for months before I joined. She brought me in an article from the newspaper about one was in the hospital and the other one was in jail because they got into a fight in a bar over a guy. I was like, okay, I feel okay crossing them off my list, that I'm not going to successfully help them get employed. But other than that, we did amazing things, and I was so proud of myself. And time for a raise came up. The annual review that your clients, a lot of them probably come to you because they're so dissatisfied. And my boss was so puffed up, and she was like, I want you to know you're getting the largest increase we've ever given out to an employee. And I was thinking, oh, this is going to be amazing. 27 cents an hour. And I'm not even going to tell you what I made back in the 90s doing this job, because it's just like, at the time it was like, oh, that works. But 27 cents an hour, I was so crestfallen. So I know it's like, wow, that's a long story to tell to get to this whole thing. But the reality is like, when somebody else, you can bust your butt for somebody else. And at the end of the day, who gets the credit? Who gets the profit? if you're lucky, you're aligned with a company that's going to give you bonuses and raise your salary and give you better titles. But what do we hear more often? And you can let me know in the chat too, but we more often than not see people who do it for someone else's success. And to me, that was like the biggest thing. I wanted to give something to the world, but I also wanted to be kind of patted on the back for it. I wanted to be rewarded. And also really big to me was freedom and flexibility. Like I didn't want somebody to tell me when I had to be there. I didn't want to be told if you have time to lean, you have time to clean. I'm more willing to work 10 times harder so that I don't get a 27-cent raise. I land a $20,000 contract and it's all mine, well, plus the IRS. But, mine, which literally kind of did happen when a grocery store contacted me closing down with three stores in my county. But that's a whole nother subject. All right, Gina says, drawing from years of coaching and mentoring experience in the financial industry, I started my own business. I was driven by a passion to be self-employed and also to guide clients to align their values and strengths with fulfilling career opportunities. Writing resumes was a natural evolution, allowing me to do two things that I love, writing and helping people align energetically with their careers. Awesome. Thank you for sharing, Gina. Okay, so I'm really big on setting my own schedule, just to kind of wrap up here with a few other points. I'm not a morning person. I'm definitely a night person. I get motivated to work at odd hours. And I'm more willing to work, like it's just the knowing that I could take Friday off, or that I don't have to go apply for, can I please have this week off or this day off? No, I just don't book anything that day, and I get the freedom and the flexibility. And when I had my resume writing business and career services business, I hustled and I did things to have group programs so that I could free up time and not have to have clients. I created products books and resources so that I had things to sell that didn't require me to all be me and my hours to make money, so that I could take vacations. And yes, ultimately I took Fridays off throughout the last probably, I don't know, half of my business, which was wonderful. And I did build up to 9 ghostwriters and whatnot. But I loved having the flexibility. I loved being able to take time off. And ultimately, it became a gift in that I had no idea that I had a genetic profile that would be like, we want to make everything go wrong. People tell me, Laura, you look so young. And I'm like, that's because I was gifted on the outside and not on the inside. My brain is fine, but it's all junky in there, people. I don't get it. But I actually went virtual so many years before anyone else did in this industry, because I had no choice. I either went on disability or I worked from the bathtub. And being self-employed and working from home and being able to just spin it, job seekers, well, can I come see you? My friend came and saw you in person, because I was working from my home, and I'd be like, actually, I've based on client feedback, I have created a way that it can be even more comfortable for my clients. And right now, all you have to do, instead of gathering all these materials I want you to have and schlepping them into the car and driving over here, now all you have to do is have those items near you in your home. You'll be comfortable at home, and we will just do this by phone. And I think I lost maybe 2 people because of that. But yeah, I worked from the bathtub. We put one of those, I can't think, little planks over, and I put my laptop on top of it. And yeah, there was a little bit of a weird echo, but technology wasn't super great back then. But I was able to work in the tub then for those year or so I needed, with my pain not allowing me to do anything else. And then later, when things went tragically wrong and I was aiming for a wheelchair, I was able to afford to get stem cells, experimental stem cells, out of pocket. I think I've spent $45,000 on them. And I've always been proud. I might not drive a super fancy car, and I may have just remodeled the home that I've lived in since we got married. And it's beautiful. I love it. But I'm okay with that, because I can afford the $20,000 to $40,000 I've spent every single year on my own healthcare while still having a really good life and super cool vintage clothes and stuff like that. So anyway, lots of reasons, but you just don't know when you're starting out and thinking that what this business, it might not just be a luxury of freedom and working when you want and being like, I'm not going to see a client before noon, because PS, all the years I had my private practice, I never had a client before noon. And I never had to tell them. It was because I didn't know what time I was going to wake up. And that wasn't always the reason, because I'm a hard worker. But the reality was I would just say, I actually have a standing engagement mornings. The earliest appointment I can take is at noon. And we left it at that. And eventually I actually cut out evening appointments. I realized people never bought on Saturdays. I cut out Saturdays. And then I cut out Mondays and Fridays, because even with confirmation, they so often just fell off the face of the earth. So only talk to clients 3 days a week. Worked from the bathtub. What else? Okay. All right. So what about you? Let me know in the chat. What has having your own business made possible for you? And if you haven't started yet, what are you dreaming of having be possible for you? All right, I'll watch for those in the chat while I go on. Just got a couple more questions here. So what's one thing you wish you had known when you first started your business? Or if you were starting your business today, what's one thing you would have done differently? So this was a really hard one for me, because I have to be really honest, and I'm not saying this to sound perfect or great or anything. I was super driven. I mean, like, I did visualize when I'm an introvert, scared to talk to people. I was scared for my phone to ring. So I read everything I could do. I did visualization work. When somebody said to me, I don't think you want to work with me. You really want to help me over the phone. I was so shocked. I thought I was sounding so professional, and I'm this 20-year-old kid, So I read books on sales and customer service, and I did visualization exercises on the things that terrified me of, what if I came to the end of my life and I hadn't gone after the things I wanted so badly because of fear? What would I be facing? So I constantly was challenging my demons and finding ways, often like safe ways. Like at one point, my mom was actually my professional buddy to go to local networking meetings. And nobody knew we were mom and daughter. And even if they did, who cared? We were two powerful women making it happen. But so I had trouble trying to think of, what was a regret for me. And there's one, and I can't go into detail because of an NDA. But I wish, so I have to be like really careful in how I say this, but if I have a weakness, it is for, I don't want anything to do with people who are bullies, who are negative people, who are cruel to others. I understand that if you have to be that way, it's because of something in you, something that's happened to you, something you haven't faced or dealt with. But still, CDI isn't for everybody, because it's a safe place. It is meant to be a place where everybody gets supported, and my phone is thinking I'm trying to talk to it. Siri is trying to talk to me now. Anyway, so I had this opportunity to come my way, and it could have meant a lot of money, but it meant that for a short period of time, I would have to have people who didn't fit the CDI model in. And I really had to weigh, do I want to grow and make all this, Mac money? Or do I want to stick to my ethics? And I know it sounds like, oh, right, so you regret not sticking to your ethics. It's not that I regret sticking to my ethics, because I know, and if this were a movie, where it was like, she gets a do-over and we're going to have her say yes to that, then I would learn very clearly that I made the right choice. But I look back at it from a more mature viewpoint, and I realized that a lot of my decision came from fear. Even though I spoke to a panel of people and I spoke to my mentor, they still allowed me to make a decision. I let fear rule me in that one spot in my life of what could be, what could go wrong, instead of spending the extra time to really think about, okay, take it, how long do I have to have it this way before I can like change it to be what I want it to be? What's the ruling there? And I think, who knows, we will never know. But if I had anything, I would say it's that. I mean, I think the lesson there is very specifically, make sure you've considered every, scenario, and make sure you're not making a decision strictly from, fear or scarcity or anything like that, because you could lose out on an opportunity that could be a game changer. Or like I said, if this was a movie, I might be like, thank goodness I didn't do that. All right, Gina says, I'm dreaming of having more flexibility and work-life balance. Yeah, it is absolutely possible. We just gotta get over some of the life hurdles, right, to get there. All right, so what about you guys? Is there anything you wish you had known or done differently when you were earlier in your business? And that could be just starting your business sooner. I don't know. So, all right. I think this might be our last question. For those who are considering a career in this field or who are struggling in their business right now, what are a few key pieces of advice you would share with them? All right. I can keep this pretty focused because I was like, I want to write this out because I could talk for years otherwise. So, let's see. I didn't have the type of support that's out there today through CDI, as I've told you. I had to go everywhere to read this on sales and that on marketing and, study books for resume writing. And then I would try to tailor these things to my business and my clients. And it's like I did a million things to come up with systems, and I spent so much precious time and money to figure out stuff that you just don't have to waste time on today. And you're going to say I'm biased, but I walked away from a contract with over 50 professional associations, like the American Marketing Association, as their resume expert, with 9 ghostwriters and up to 270 consult requests in a week. I walked away from that because I wanted to give what I saw my colleagues struggling with every day. And that is what I've built CDI on in this unregulated industry, this industry where you'd think people would flock to associations, but more they just Google stuff for free. But I'm here giving my all to everyone. So of course I'm going to say join CDI, because if you've been on the CDI pages, you've seen the testimonials that we've helped people build so much faster. There is really no reason why you have to go it alone and reinvent the wheel. And that's where it really matters, because we have people join CDI and I never see them at an event. When they leave the association a year later, I will look and they've never logged in once. Life is busy and it's hard, and I get it. But if you don't go all in with whatever you invest in and take advantage of it, a year later, you're still going to be in the same place. So, my biggest advice, because it was the things that worked for me, is take advantage of the things that will distinguish you. If that might mean certifications or awards, if it might simply mean studying the advanced lessons that are part of your membership, so that you have the tips, tricks, and techniques to have confidence and skill with your clients, and be able to charge more. Study the sales script. I offer group coaching and one-on-one consulting. The reality is the resources are all there, but obviously it's so much easier when somebody is there cheering you on and tailoring things to your unique circumstances. But if you have the discipline and the drive to get in there, or just to show up at the events and be guided, they're there. That's what they're there for. So, don't do this yourself. Don't make the mistake of simply putting up a LinkedIn profile or a website and waiting. I did a series of articles years ago called the stop. Wow, they all have acronyms in them. And Bob is my big acronym for my first one, because that's business owner, or what what does it stand for? I'm super embarrassed because I don't know what bobbing stands for at this moment. I didn't plan to talk about that. But basically, I did this whole series on the things we get in our head that hold us back. And the one is, I have a PhD, so I don't need to learn to sell, or I have all these credentials, so I have to learn to sell, or I don't like doing that, so I'm not going to do it. And yeah, at the end of the day, it's your own business and you get to do what you want. But if you don't have a system that works for you and you keep complaining about not being successful, nothing's ever going to change until you change it. And why reinvent the wheel when there are solutions out there? So I broke all these like beliefs of things like I shouldn't have to do that and this and that in this series of articles that I literally can't remember what the acronym stands for, and I'm going to shoot myself thinking about it. So also, my last bit of advice here would be, it actually goes hand in hand with what I'm saying. And that is simply, don't waste your time learning from people who are struggling. It's like a job seeker who thinks they don't need to hire a resume writer because their friend wrote a resume and it only took them 6 months to get hired. That must be the way to do it. They don't know. They come to us they come to us thinking, you just got some 50-cent words and some fancy formatting. They don't realize all the things that go into making them unique and strategic. The stories, the metrics, the branding, the layout, all those things that make them stand out. So they have this, belief of what's necessary. And it works the same for you in that if you're just listening to your colleagues, is your colleague closing 4-figure sales? Do they have a 90th percentile close rate? Do they have products and programs that don't require them to work in their business every hour for every dollar? Are they taking vacations? And also things like, if they're not having to do marketing, is it because they're not having to do marketing because they have this really great contract, or they write this column, or they busted their butt to make their book #1 for the longest time, blah, blah, blah? You can't just look at someone else or listen to someone else. If they haven't gone where you want to go, then you are wasting your time and committing half measures to what could have been a full measure done right the first time, which is what we want to try to give job seekers. So it should be what we want to give ourselves in our business. So stop wasting time on half measures, negative beliefs, and people who haven't been where you want to go. And okay, yeah, I have flaws, but I'm working really hard to help people get where they're going. And those are different for everybody. I have people who started their businesses in CDI who are now grossing over $400,000 a year. Some of them are doing it on their own. Some of them are doing it with a team. Some of them are working part-time and are super happy that they can be a stay-at-home mom and make 50 grand while making their family their first priority. So what your goal is different for everyone, but it should be possible. You should not, if you find yourself with the same problems year in and year out, this is how we change them. We change them together. So let me see. If you have any advice you'd share, one piece of advice you want to share with everybody, please put it in the chat. And I was wrong. I have one last one here. Is there anything else you'd like our audience to know? Okay, short and sweet. It is 100% possible to build a thriving business and feel the rewards of helping job seekers to go out there and be successful. You can, and you probably already have heard, but there's nothing better than having somebody say you saved the day, that you're their hero. And that's why we have our actual logo for CDI, is because I want you to believe in yourself the way you ask job seekers to believe in you. But you've got to have a system and a commitment. You've got to do more than the bare minimum to get the engine humming. Now, notice I'm saying get the engine humming, because if we put the right processes in place, this isn't a, working long hours forever. It's just making it happen. It's getting that wheel turning and cranking and working for us. So you can. It's mind shift, My mindset, I tried to say mindset and partnerships in one word. Mindship. It's mindset, partnerships, systems, and support. So you can do it. And I really hope if you're not already doing it in CDI that you are doing it in CDI soon. That sounds funny. Happy Valentine's Day, right? Okay. So one thing you can do right now, let me throw this up here on the screen in place of what I have up there now. If you haven't done this yet, you should go take our quiz. It's a 1-minute quiz on what's blocking you from building a 6-figure business. Great little quiz. Will tell you your number one blocker, and then it will point you to strategic and free, if you're not a CDI member, resources to help you go about starting to bust that block. Okay, so what's next? Next week, we have our first official guest, who I think will probably be more on topic than I was. I was excited and all over the place. But you're going to meet Dr. Janine Bennett of Vision to Purpose. Janine is such a sweetheart and a total dynamo. She has had her business for, I don't know the exact number of years. I just know at this moment that it's between 7 and 10. And before this, she worked in media, law, federal government, DoD, and academia. She provides resume writing, job search strategy, LinkedIn profile writing, and career coaching. Her client population is transitioning military members and veterans, but she also serves IT, finance, and healthcare markets. So I'll be asking her the same questions I answered for you today from my perspective. And I think it's going to be fabulous to start getting insight from a wide variety of members. So I really hope you'll join me. And don't forget, if you want to not make sure you don't miss the show, like, subscribe, follow. It's every Wednesday at 3:45. And just a couple other things. So I shared with you the quiz, but we do have a very robust free stuff page on our site. If you're wondering if CDI is for you, or want to take advantage of some resources, go over to careerdirectors.com and click on free stuff. And there you can join our community. You can access lessons. You can take the quiz and get all those lessons curated for you by your blocker. And also you can go over to our join page and get on the wait list, because membership is not open all the time. It is currently closed, so we can focus on our current members. But a little birdie told me that if you take the quiz, there might be a back way in. That's all I'm going to say, right? Okay, and don't forget, certifications are open, and does have a way to become a member there as well. So, okay, I thank my guests so much. I think I might have another comment here. Let's see. Facebook user says, one piece of advice: consistency, even when you want to give up. CDI is here to help support you through good and bad times. Yes, thank you. And that was from Gina. Thank you, Gina. I love you. Gina is on our education committee, and she is she's so wonderful. I love you, Gina. I love everybody who's here today. Such a great group of wonderful, dynamic people. So that is it for today. I thank you so much, and I hope you'll come back next week to listen to Janine and hear her story. So with that, I will say thank you, and I hope you fly higher and have a wonderful Valentine's Day if you celebrate it.